Joining us now on the line is Ann Coulter, the author of In Trump We Trust. Ann, thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Good to be here, Howie.
Well, I see nothing. No stories have broken yet. Apparently, the meeting continues between among the President of the United States and Rosenstein. Rosenstein is back at DOJ, and is Christopher Wray? Has he gone back to the FBI building?
I don't know about that. I just saw some reporters tweeting that Rosenstein is back at DOJ. No comment.
Rosenstein has no comment. What do you think happened at the meeting with Rosenstein and Chris Wray from the FBI, Ann?
I hope it was a dressing down. Why haven't... I mean, we have to wait for not reporters from our premier newspapers, the Washington Post or the New York Times, but Sarah Carter and her husband to find out that there were, informants. A total put-up job to just an excuse for this political investigation of a political candidate in the middle of a presidential campaign. But having found that out, is that the first Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray knew about it? They had to read it online? These are their agencies. And why is it that Trump has to send out an email on Sunday saying, I'm ordering an investigation of this? Rod Rosenstein doesn't notice, looks like there's some political shenanigans going on with this powerful federal law enforcement bureau.
Well, he signed the fourth application for an extension of the FISA warrant to wiretap Carter Page, if not other ones. So I mean, we used to have the old say, he's in the jackpot himself, isn't he? Isn't he jammed up, as they say in the mob? He's jammed up himself. How can he be investigating it?
No, it certainly looks like it. This is why we need an investigation. And I'm glad that the Inspector General of the Department of Justice certainly seems to be a straight shooter. I'm pleased that Jeff Sessions did not follow the orders the president gave him across Twitter to dump this Michael Horowitz, who is an Obama appointee, but so far he seems like a completely straight shooter. He's the one who outed the
McCabe, the number two guy,
and also Strzok and Lisa Page. He was the one who produced those emails. He seems to be quite honorable. There are still honorable people around. I don't know if you've been following some of the things Mark Penn has been saying. There are a few liberals who haven't gone insane. And they're not stupid people. Yeah, it looks bad for Rosenstein. I mean, maybe he didn't know either. I'm not reaching a conclusion yet because apparently not only because it's coming out soon, but apparently it is true that Horowitz's report should be coming out soon.
Well, I mean, but Horowitz has got, Ann, he's got a couple of reports. This is just on the next report that's coming out is just on the brooming of the Clinton email investigation. He still has to do a report on the FISA warrant application and the abuses therein. And now apparently President Trump just asked Rosenstein to expedite the investigation. And I agree, Horowitz seems to be an honorable guy. But, I mean, they seem to move awfully slowly, don't they? I mean, I'd like to speed it up a little bit. How about appoint this guy Huber that's running the parallel investigation on all these scandals at the DOJ and the FBI? How about just make him he's the U.S. attorney from Utah. How about just make him the special counsel and just, task him with trying to uncover this FBI scandal involving the placing of this mole inside the campaign?
Hey, Howie, quickly, this is the statement from the press secretary. Based on the meeting with the president, the Department of Justice has asked the Inspector General to expand its current investigation to include any irregularities with the Federal Bureau of Investigations or the Department of Justice's tactics concerning the Trump campaign. It was also agreed that White House Chief of Staff Kelly will immediately set up a meeting with the FBI, DOJ, and DNI, together with congressional leaders, to review highly classified and other information they have requested.
Yeah, I mean, Ann,
what I find appalling about this is that the president needs to carry or call Rosenstein and Wray to his office. I mean, after first reported by, I guess, Sarah Carter and a few other online investigative reporters, and then much later covered by the top-notch Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporters at the New York Times. But wow, they were Johnny-come-latelys on this. But it did run. It did finally hit the New York Times. Doesn't Rod Rosenstein read the New York Times? He doesn't just call up the president and say nothing, Mr. President. I see there's some corruption.
And they dropped it on Friday night to appear in the Saturday papers. Friday night has the lowest TV viewership of news. Saturday morning papers have the least circulation of any during the week. And as Devin Nunes said yesterday with Maria Bartiromo, they were trying to set him and Trey Gowdy up. They were going to drop the story after they had a briefing for them at the Justice Department, so they could then turn around and go to their little whispering sources at the two newspapers and say, well, the Republican congressman must have leaked all this information about Stefan Halper.
I'm shocked that you think the New York Times is not bending over backwards to give Trump favorable coverage. And that you think there could be some shenanigans with a late Friday afternoon report on the informant on the Trump campaign during a presidential election. But my position still stands. I don't think Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray were home watching the royal wedding coverage. If they aren't following the serious reporting being done about what's going on in their own departments, online, again, not by the Washington Post and not by the New York Times, surely they got around to reading the New York Times at some point this weekend. And for them not to, on their own, call up and say to the president and say, we don't need a meeting. Oh, my gosh, I haven't been paying attention to what's going on in my department, but this deserves an investigation.
Hey, Ann, I've got a new word. They always say Republicans pounce. When there's a Democrat scandal, they say Republicans pounce on Democrat scandal. Well, listen to this from the New York Times today, or from the Saturday story. Senior law enforcement officials have privately expressed concern the Republicans are digging into FBI files for information they can weaponize against the Russia inquiry. They can So they're trying to frame the president of the United States, and he's trying to get to the bottom of it. And the information that he uncovers about how they're trying to frame him for a crime he didn't commit, that's weaponizing the information.
Whereas they are just doing straight reporting.
Yes. No evidence has emerged, Ann, that the informant acted improperly. Agents were leery of disrupting the presidential campaign. That's why they didn't go to Trump. They were leery of disrupting the president. They were trying to help him. They were trying to help Donald Trump. There was an agent acting.
Oh, totally they were. Yeah, no, he was a helper. I don't call him an informant. I call him a protector. One thing you have to be aware of reading these stories about all the sources is all of this is the FBI engaging in massive CYA.
Right.
I've been reading through the last couple years of the New York, mostly the New York Times, but also a little bit the Washington Post. They're sources. They're sources. And their sources aren't always telling the truth, but it's always a spin where the FBI looks so much more noble than the facts warrant. You see what the actual facts are, and just absolutely crazy spin-ins. The New York Times, and the New York Times is the best of them, is just doing stenography for whatever excuses the FBI throws up.
I know. This is the Washington Post. The FBI is warning that exposing the informant could have severe consequences.
Oh, no, they have got to knock that off.
The stakes are so high that the FBI has been working over the past 2 weeks to mitigate the potential damage if the source's identity were revealed. Oh, my goodness.
No, I've noticed this about the left, particularly the less moral justification they have for a position, the more they try to make the argument, but people will die! So the first, primo example is their love for killing babies. Remember the old, buy a pizza in a Domino's box, put a woman in a pine box. You're killing women by opposing abortion. Wait a second, you guys are the ones who want this mass slaughter every year.
You know what?
But somehow it becomes an issue of people dying.
The FBI has the FBI, the Washington Post, that was a Freudian slip. It's the same thing. They have a new phrase now, on the radar screen. On the radar. Didn't the ACLU used to go to court if somebody said a communist in the Lower East Side of New York was found to be on the radar screen? Because he belonged to some subversive or allegedly subversive organization. I thought people like the Washington Post, the New York Times, they used to get really worked up when the FBI claimed it had somebody on the radar screen.
Oh, a lot of the world has turned upside down under Trump.
On the radar screen. And then they say, too, Page had been on the FBI's radar. Both of them had been on the radar, Papadopoulos and Page. Page had been on the FBI's radar since at least 2013, when the FBI caught 2 accused Russian spies on a wiretap discussing their attempts to recruit him. That was the wiretap, as the Washington Post conveniently forgets to mention, where they called him an idiot. Remember that?
Right.
And then he became a source as late as 2016. He was a witness for the FBI in the trial of these Russian agents who called him an idiot. And then 6 months later, they turn around and get a FISA warrant to surveil him.
I'm just so glad the FBI has nothing else to worry about.
Well, they've got MS. They've got MS-13 under control.
In Texas.
Right. How about the shootings in Parkland, Texas, where they got the warning from the guy's aunt?
I just said that.
Or not Parkland. Excuse me, Parkland, Florida. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah. So Brennan, could Brennan be any more hysterical? The former CIA director, Ann?
No, I don't think he's doing the intelligence community proud. Though he has not been doing the intelligence community proud for quite some time. I mean, this is all very useful for Donald Trump. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet in this interview, but he hasn't built the wall. On the other hand, the left is so crazy, so unfair, so hysterical that you see some Democrats out there trying to tamp down the impeachment talk and keep certain people off TV. All of this is inuring to the benefit of the president, though he'd be in a much better posture, I must say, if he would build the wall.
Did you see that somebody, I think it was Mark Shields, who I didn't even know was still alive, apparently over the weekend, he said that Devin Nunes, when he's trying to engage in the oversight that he's supposed to be performing under the U.S. Constitution, that he's engaging in McCarthyite-like tactics.
If only. McCarthyite.
I thought that would get your attention, McCarthyite tactics.
That means correctly accusing people who are guilty of treason.
Right. Well, I guess he is engaging in McCarthyite tactics in that case.
And being hysterically attacked for it by the enemies of freedom.
Ann Coulter, thanks for being with us as always. We appreciate it.
Good to talk to you, Howie Carr.
I'll talk to you soon. I'm Howie.